So we're back for another episode after a couple of weeks. And remember, Lyra, the last episode we kind of talked about the Iran war, and right now we start to have some sort of ceasefire with the Straits of Hormuz. But today we kind of want to talk about all these issues, but in relation to Malaysia, right? And of course, there are so many different dimensions. But I want to start off with this just a couple of days ago. Remember, everyone is kind of like under a lot of pressure because the crude oil cannot pass Strait of Hormuz. And this part, especially Asia, South Korea, China, Japan, Australia, they all need the kind of crude oil. And now, by the way, before we even go there, did you realize that I think a lot of people were shocked when Prime Minister announced that in 2025, Malaysia imported twice the amount of crude oil that we exported.
Yeah, I think generally people won't be thinking about this sort of information unless it is reviewed by the government. Because I mean, who is like, I mean, unless those of interest, I mean, those who are really in the industry, they will actually be knowing about all these facts. The thing is, it does come as a surprise because people will be like wondering. I mean, because I guess the prime minister is actually announcing it because of the subsidy issue.
Yeah, and I think the general response, I'm talking about people who are fairly well informed politically, they were a bit surprised. So I was talking to our friend who was in Petronas, and he's like, you all never read history, is it? Then he said, we never have a lot of crude oil. And actually, I don't know, like when we study history, it's always the Han Tuah, the Melaka, and then reach the modern era, sort of lost interest already, right?
Yeah.
But he said we never have a lot of crude oil. We have good quality crude oil, which is easy to process. But of course, Malaysia do have a lot of natural gas.
Yeah, I mean because you have like the Borneo states that are really they are very very strong supporters of MA63, and I mean they are wanting the federal government to actually uphold their end and things like that. So you'll be thinking there will be a lot of more interests that are at stake. So but this whole narrative sort of like cause you to begin to ponder again actually what's the main reason for the independence move.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's the finance, and also I think the perception that Petronas is the eternal golden goose. But I guess for me, when I read, I mean, even I wasn't aware that we actually import. I kind of know that our crude oil production is in decline, but I didn't know that it was so low that we needed to import twice what we export. So yeah, but for me, the reaction is really, wow, we cannot rely on this supposedly golden goose forever. I mean, we need to diversify. Malaysia used to be an economy that is even stronger than Taiwan, South Korea in the 60s. And today, look where we are, and we may not even be in top 3 or top 4 or top 5 in Southeast Asia. So it's kind of sobering, right? If we don't deal with all the systemic issue that we've been saying with affirmative actions and eternal subsidy, eternal handout. If people don't want to deal with it, I think it's a dead end for the country.
But do you reckon that it has more to do with like, hey, I mean, it is like my comfort food, it soothes my soul, those sort of things that actually cause people to be very, very stuck in one sort of paradigm in terms of, hey, I mean, we must forever rely on the government's handout, otherwise we won't make it in life. So I felt like a lot of people will be thinking, hey, it's unfair for me because I mean I was born into this, I didn't choose this sort of life, and here I am. I mean, you like it or not, I mean the previous generations, they can make a lot of choices, just like we can make a lot of choices that will affect generations to come. But the thing is, someone still need to be accountable, and I think there comes a time when we have to stop the blame on the previous generations and actually do take a stand for ourselves. But I do feel like generally it's a lot of like emotions that are being like tempered.
Yeah, and that's where I think good leadership comes in, and you have to make decisions that are difficult. So when we talk about handout, we trace back to May 13, we trace back to NEP, and it has been ongoing for 30, 40 years already. If we don't want to make an adjustment now, I mean, this is the disease of socialism, right? This is the disease of affirmative actions. And we're just talking about, like a bit off track but related, like British used to have the best navy in the world, right? So when Trump called for stammer, send some ships, and British didn't come with a ship. But actually, the other side of the story is they do not have ships. They do not have capable ships, because they spend so much money on social welfare. And that's really the whole story of Germany or France or all the previously great Western European nations. They spend so much on social support. I mean, that's a very nice one. I mean, but basically, it is that they're using all the money and they don't have enough for essential things. So when you want to do adjustment, it's not easy. I mean, look at Germany now. They were saying that all the men under 30 years old, if they want to leave Germany for 4 months or 5 months, I can't remember, you have to inform the government because
Wow.
they may need to conscript people because the German army is non-existent.
Oh my.
Yeah. And in fact, do you remember the Munich Olympic bombing, right? And that was what, in the 60s or 70s? And when that happened, the head of Mossad went to Berlin because, he lived through Holocaust and he had memory and of nightmare of the might of Nazi and German military complex, right? So he went there and he said, okay, Germany, you should have a lot of, firepower to go and catch this. So he went to the police station in Berlin, and the police was telling him, we don't have guns, we have no rifle. And this Mossad boss is like, you are German, he's like, what happened? So this kind of rotting started off way back. And now, you see, when Trump threatened, withdrawing troops from NATO, I tell you, even though Europe is trying to show a defiant face, but they're actually quivering with fear. They cannot replace, like Macron say, we will do our own Euro army. Yeah, right, in 10 years' time. And Russia will just flip you just like that. So that's the thing. You overspend. Malaysia also, we overspend. So if we want to make an adjustment, I mean, people have to make sacrifices, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and if a lot of people are just kind of like thinking Trump is just calling a bluff, as in like, hey, I mean,
Maybe
'cause
NATO?
exactly. I mean, NATO and also US having the best military in the world, the superpower in the world, and basically, I think a lot of people are like, nah, it's just
I
someone
mean,
who
they've
is
proven
like,
it with Venezuela, and now, I mean, did you read about the rescue mission, which is just astounding, and I know we're kind of segue a little bit, right? But it's kind of like the mindset. In fact, somebody was doing a calculation because they kind of had to blow up some planes and kind of sacrifice some equipment. They say it cost them, I don't know, it's almost $100 million loss of equipment just to save one person. So which other country would do that for one soldier? I mean,
yeah.
China would be like, oh, it's just a stab. Even Malaysia, I don't think you will rescue someone for even 1 million ringgit, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think this kind of mindsets, I mean, let's talk about in Malaysia, in a way is maybe a resurgence of the anti-colonial thinking again?
I do think so, but I also felt like, I mean, there is that part anti-colonialism, but I also feel like there is a lot of, I think the politically correct sort of mentality is actually causing us to embrace the alternative to capitalism. I mean, because capitalism requires you to work hard, and I felt like when you're trying to like justify certain um laziness or certain lack of performance and things like that by rewarding people unnecessarily, like socialism
Yeah,
or
that's
what.
affirmative action, DEI, right?
Exactly, but I felt like because Malaysia is so, I don't know, like in recent years, because I mean we're starting off for wanting to talk about Nuriza, and I mean she's well known as like a activist. I mean
Yeah.
activist who talks only. I feel it is a lot of talk, but yet there is no substantial practical plans that actually is sustaining. And like what we have talked over dinner, you say, hey, what's our role here?
Mm.
If the role cannot sustain the meaning of the role, then what's the point of having this role in the first place? So I feel like with our current government, I think the the war cry for reformation is very, very loud. But the thing is, there's really not much action. And the way that government is trying to pander to, trying to court the majority voters that may not even reciprocate accordingly, you might end up losing the hardcore supporters. And I think because of this sort of position, it's like there are many tests after tests, and like with the earlier Middle East war, Israel with Hamas, and then after that now the positioning with Iran, it feels like we are always sympathetic towards terrorists.
Yeah, I think you summarize it correctly, and it's like, how do we frame this, and does our political elite, are they even aware of the projection that they are making? And of course, with Hamas and Israel, you can still say, well, the whole Middle East, all the Islamic nation are against it. Notwithstanding the fact that Israel is defending self-defense and things like that, then of course, all those led to all the boycott and things like that, which, by the way, it only harmed their own people. So then the Iran war is slightly different, because Iran is also indiscriminately bombing Saudi, Oman, Emirates.
Well, have you heard the argument where a lot of some Malaysians are actually justifying the fact that, hey, they are retaliating against those places where there is US military bases. So actually they are targeting the US, not so much of like the neighboring friendly countries.
Actually, from what I read, like Emirates, they are targeting a data center, because Emirates is like one of the top 5 AI developing nations. So they are targeting the data center. They are targeting like Qatar gas production, Oman gas production. So, if you are against the military, then remember that the foreign minister came out and say, "Oh well, we will only shoot if American missiles." By the way, none of American missiles are launched from all those countries. Almost all the missiles are launched from the aircraft carrier group. So I think the American military are quite precise in all this, but Iran doesn't care, and looks like the world doesn't really want to look at the facts also. But that's the other thing, right? You have, how can you normalize this kind of behavior, right? So if you say, okay, well, nobody should do anything, then should a nation that has supported terrorism for 47 years be allowed to have nuclear weapon? That's an argument which I don't hear a lot of people talking about, because it is like Iran is a proven terrorist sponsor state. Even the Middle East countries all agree to that. So it's kind of, it doesn't look good for Malaysia to take a very obvious side. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, I don't feel like we are in a position to lecture other people.
Yeah, of course, if you talk about the bargaining power and influence, we're really a nobody, right? But of course, if you, for example, if PMS just say, look, I'm talking to Iran for my own national issue. I want Petronas related tanker to pass through. If you kind of narrow it down to that, I think it's fine. But then, but the way he talked is like, oh, this is my friend. We're in the same struggle. So what do you mean by that? We're in the same struggle. You align yourself. You identify yourself with a terrorist state that has terrorized the whole Middle East for 47 years. So that has recently killed 50,000 of their own people. So I felt like it's just very tone deaf.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of those people who say, hey, we like everything in China. Everything, like China has such great surveillance, state-of-the-art sort of, I don't know, e-wallet system and things like that. But until you live in China, you don't know how controlling they are. So I feel like it's the same way for those who are very much like looking towards the Middle East and maybe even looking towards like Iran and things like that, places like that. And they felt like, hey, the cleric theocratic sort of rule is actually great for the nation and things like that until you live in such situation where you're basically oppressed. So I feel like people are a bit nuts for desiring things
Yeah,
unless you lose your freedom, I suppose.
when it is so obvious that there have been, they have been oppressing their own people and things like that. If there's a model that you want to model after, then I really have nothing to say to you. But of course, in terms of Malaysian history, like that pertains to PMX himself. Remember when the revolution happened in the early 80s, and Mahathir was prime minister, and he was concerned that because of this kind of cleric influence, that PAS could defeat, and PAS was doing well, on the ascent. So he decided to recruit someone with Islamic credential from Abing, you know who, Anwar Ibrahim, to come in to boost out the Barisan National Islamic credential. So yeah, I mean, it's like they try to show that, oh yeah, we are also we can, and you can see that is the beginning of Islamization with Jakim and things like that, and that you can argue that wasn't, no, I won't say you can argue, I would say that is very clear that it wasn't the original intent of the Malaysia agreement. But of course, Sabah and Sarawak didn't voice out and things like that. So we have this kind of extreme Islamization. So every time you get, recently there's a temple issue again. So you get a little bit of things, then people get the political correct spirit just kicking, and people, it's like, hey, excuse me, you are the largest group of people, you have the most protection, you have the highest level of politician, you have all the royalty, you have all the support of the world, and you are threatened. So it just, this kind of siege mentality, political religious war, is the reason why. And I think one of the episodes we wanted to do, remember Critical Spectator, he posted a super damning article, which unfortunately most are true, about Malaysia. But the one difference I would say is he's like, Malaysia is doomed, but I don't believe Malaysia is doomed. I believe there is still opportunity for course correction, but people have to acknowledge what we have become. That Mahathir opened the door, and he by allowing the Islamic spirit to come in, and this is what Mariam Mokhtar, sister in Islam, they have been arguing. These are Muslims themselves who doesn't believe that this is the spirit of Malaysia. But if we don't want to change this, then I don't know, eventually we'll be last in Southeast Asia. Now, I'm saying all these things because it kind of, we are coming full circle, It started off with Iran revolution, then Anwar was recruited from Abing. Now he is prime minister, and he's saying that Iran is our friend in struggle. I just felt like it's a very dangerous thing to say as a prime minister.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. I mean, look at how the daughter is behaving. I feel like it's really. I don't think it represents the whole. I mean, Malaysians in general.
So I mean, you mentioned like Nurul Izzah is more from an activist background. So do you think it's more like, it's not really because she supports the Islamic and the cleric struggle, but it's more coming from a political correct position?
I feel for her, it's probably more politically correct.
So a bit like it's very interesting now with Trump coming back again, and so many of the, like a lot of tech company those days were very into the woke, and especially BLM. In fact, recently there was some conference of, they call the tech CEO tech bros, right? I mean, why everyone use the word bro, right? And and they were like, oh, what a relief, BLM is over already. So the fact that say that meant at that time they were coerced to support George Floyd and the movement. So that means it's like there's a political correct spirit that caused them to be like, okay, we had to comply, otherwise people will boycott us and things like that. So that's what the activists do. When you bring in this kind of attitude, then you accept DEI, you accept affirmative action, and you accept quota, you accept you must have certain number of race or gender for. I mean, it's like that is just moving us more and more away from meritocracy. So would you think like Nurul Izzah is more coming from that kind of background? Maybe. I mean, we don't want to presume what she thinks.
Yeah, I do think so. I do feel like I mean her age group. I think it's most easily captured by political correctness, and also plus the gang that she's usually associated with. I feel like there is a large measure from there. I mean, not barring the fact that probably they are also very much sympathetic towards. I mean, as in they do feel like they can relate to the Iranian revolution. I mean, after all, her dad was being recruited from that era.
No, it's interesting. Like the headline, I'm just now we go back to the article we wanted to start off, right? So the Star actually wrote. I mean, I was just reading a few different sources, and actually there was quite a big reaction from Singapore. Okay, because I think Nurul was quoted by saying Singapore's refusal to negotiate with Iran regrettable, and of course there were many factual mistakes also. Okay, because they were. I think some people came out and said, look, we Singapore has been in contact with the foreign minister of Iran, but we are not talking about paying money because we don't consider Straits of Hormuz. It doesn't belong to Iran. See that's Singapore, and some people started to. I mean, I was reading some of Singapore own commentary because they were a nation that is so reliant on maritime industry, and so they even drafted some of the maritime rules in the world and things like that. Like, I think Singapore now is by different kind of metric, it is the busiest port in the world.
Yep.
So I would imagine they know what maritime law is all about. Okay, so from that perspective, they are saying that. But of course, the way, but you see, even though the way Nurul Izzah say it is like very harmless, but it is the kind of suggestion is almost like, hey, you should be, it's like trying to portray Iran as the victim here when they have been terrorists for 47 years.
Yeah.
So that's the part. And that's why I mentioned anti-colonial mindset. But of course, one thing we must remember that the Trump derangement syndrome is causing, that's why I was talking to another friend, saying that even this Trump derangement syndrome is affecting people in Taiwan, because like what Trump was saying about Taiwan, right? It's like he was demanding that TSMC should move 50 or 60% of the production to Taiwan. But of course, if you move the chip production to US, that's the end of Taiwan. Whatever leverage they have against China is gone. So, but of course, Trump doesn't care about all these things. He was like, oh, well, I can protect you and things like that. But you see, when people get triggered by Trump, and that's why, for Taiwanese to say you support Iran, this is kind of ridiculous, right? But that's how the derangement works. But do you see that derangement all over the place?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's definitely getting stronger.
Yeah, in Malaysia, right? I mean, I would say normally reasonable people are getting deranged.
Yeah, I mean, I told you, right? I mean, I've heard an acronym that says TACO.
Yeah,
it's the TACO.
I just found out what TACO is like.
I didn't know. I was like, what's TACO? And Trump always chickens out. So I feel like, are you ignorant or are you just like stupid?
That's why people want to believe what they want to believe. And like they were saying, the Supreme Court decision on tariff, I don't think they even read the decision, okay? It didn't invalidate the whole tariff system. It didn't invalidate. In fact, the whole decision didn't even talk about the refund of tariff. But of course, then we have our Minister Johari came out and said that the agreement is void. I tell you, he will have to come back and eat his word, because if that is voided, the American will demand another agreement which is worse for Malaysia. That will happen, okay? Because the Supreme Court made it very clear that the president has 100% control over import. Okay, I cannot charge tariff. I just don't allow your things to come. So what? I mean, people have not seen the second or third and fourth phase that he can do. So I just feel like the derangement caused people to be not so objective and not like reading the facts correctly. I don't know, it's like maybe in a way they are like, okay, the whole world is now united against US, but I don't think so, right? I mean, uh, who was it saying? I think can't remember. I think it was I think Matthew Boy, right? One of the chief political editor in Washington or Breitbart, and he was just analyzing. I mean, Breitbart is one of those very articulated media that analyze the whole Iran from perspective of China. It's all about restricting China, and Boy was just saying this. Look, he said, look, there's no doubt you have two superpower in the world today, America and China. So really, both sides are posturing their method. So you want an open, creative, freedom kind of structure, or you want a more restricted kind of, a bit like Apple and Android in the early days. Okay, to be fair, both are, I mean, I can't help talking about that. But in the early days, they are very, very different. Apple is so restrictive and Android is so loose in a bad way also, and security was not great. But now they are more similar. So, but you see this kind of comparison, and nations are being offered the path. Now, just one other interesting point. I was just reading an analysis, and they were saying that how, because we talked about this elsewhere before, like people always say China wanted to take Taiwan, but another nation that it really, really wants to take is Singapore. And I know people don't think in those terms. And somebody, I think it's Kevin O'Leary, he's an investor and things like that. So he was saying that, look, how would that happen? And in fact, he also has a same idea that China eventually will one day want to swallow Singapore. And he said, if the future is AI, and AI power comes from data center, so China doesn't need to send soldier to Singapore. It just needs to take over the data center of Singapore.
Yep.
And that's it. So that will be how the future war will be fought. So I thought, well, it makes sense because, like Singapore is one of the most digitalized country in the world, and it will go that path very quickly. And you don't even need an aircraft carrier. You don't even need a soldier there. You just need like a whole gang of hackers or things like that. So, but anyway, we kind of sidetrack a little bit. So what do you think? I mean, we talk about Nurul Izzah, and then is there? I mean, we kind of want to conclude already. I mean, well, what's the way out for us? I mean, we talk about the issue, we talk about the symptom, the Islamizations, and nobody really is happy, right? Like you have KK Mark with printed swords, and it become an issue and causing not to be able to go to IPO and things like that. Nobody wants this kind of religious control, and people cannot change their religions, and you get forced conversion. Parents stole the child away from the other parent, and a little bit of you get temple kind of riot and things like that. I mean, what's the way out?
Wow, that's a very tough question. I do feel like, I mean, because frequently on this show we keep paralleling Malaysia with US. I do feel like actually there is a certain prototype that was being displayed, and actually we are in a season of war. I mean, Trump is also known as, to many people in the world, he is known as a wartime president. I mean, peace through strength is his main slogan, and I think he's determined to have his legacy being known that way. And so I feel like there is a lot of, I mean, he's not afraid to challenge a very like ignorant sort of thinking, or very much like stupidity sort of concept. So I think Malaysia just has to
what
be
you
a
were
bit,
saying about Tucker, is it?
exactly. I mean, so I feel like, wow, I mean, of all the posts that he has been posting, I do feel like, wow, that's like the most in your face, yet it is just so eloquently put and just like straightforward.
It's like
As a
the
matter of fact,
posturing, right? I mean, the content is interesting, but it's just how he posture himself. Is like, we are in a season of war. We don't have time for this kind of like not so relevant things. anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not like idolizing Trump here, but I do feel like there is a lot of I mean, if people would care to read news from alternative sources and things like that, I mean, they will realize that Trump's approval rating is so high. Generally, a lot of people are very, very supportive of him, and they are really even having to have their own thinking about making America great again being challenged. I mean, because you have this group of people who are perhaps maybe somewhat MAGA but not MAGA. Then so it's like, I mean, you're talking a lot those people who are like tagging along at the fringe. So I feel like in Malaysia we are at
The
that
Maha
season.
people, they
Yeah,
say.
we're in that season of having to filter out actually what do we really believe. I mean, what do we see Malaysia? I mean, what do we envision Malaysia to be? I mean, so we start off with a lot of bad things that have happened. I mean, of course, we also mentioned about how Malaysia is not producing crude oil like as much as we like to think, and so that kind of like put the Borneo states at a place where, hey, I mean, so what's the main fight that we're going after? So I feel like there's a lot of things that are actually being challenged, and if everyone would just come to the table and really just begin to discuss again, and I feel like at the end of the day we are like just wanting to have that pursue for happiness. So that sort of pursuit is actually what a lot of people are wanting for, and we talk so much about freedom. So if people, I mean, you cannot think of your civilians as stupid, right? I mean, they cannot make decisions for themselves. I feel like politicians sometimes think too much. So I feel like if we will just take a bit of step back, I mean, especially for those politicians, and begin to want to be a great statesman, I feel like there is a different kind of outlook that we could begin to envision.
Yeah, in fact, I was just thinking about the parallel again because like Malaysia and US and to an extent Australia are very similar because it's a nation with many migrants and some sociologists call them the rainbow nations. But I was just thinking about the parallel, which is talking about the support. I mean, using Iran war as a case study, right? So you have about Trump supporter about 40%. I mean 40% MAGA people. So the hardcore MAGA is stable. But what kind of caused him to win the 7 swing states and having the majority popular vote is because of the MAHA. So some people might not know what is MAHA. Make America Healthy Again, which is RFK, which is the Joe Rogan, and they have some grievances with the Democrat and they want freedom. The Tim Pool, all the libertarians. So they are like kind of okay. We are sick of the Democrats, so we'll support Trump. But the MAHA maybe contributed 10 to 15%.
Yep.
So it is this category of support that is in danger. But you have the solid 40% behind him. And in fact, I think it was Economist or CNN put out an article. It's like, does Trump not even care about midterm? And and it's like the way he behaves is like, I need to do what is right, even if it costs me a midterm. I felt like that coming out from him. And so you come back to the parallel in Malaysia. We have an opportunity for reset with a new government. UMNO and Barisan Nasional finally out already. But it's very hard to have a new coalition because Pakatan and the Borneo states are not in good terms. And it's because the Borneo states voter keep on putting the same crap of government, the GPS and GRS. So there's that tension there. But then the unfortunate thing is with the Madani government, all of a sudden you can feel like all the policies is almost done in accordance to what UMNO wants. That's the feeling from Pakatan supporters. So imagine you have a MAGA kind of base and then you're doing everything MAHA wants. The people will be extremely pissed off. So that's why it's like, I mean, I'm not giving a solution, but I'm just kind of pointing out that the coalition building is tricky. But I feel like the Borneo states have a role to play. And especially since they so overtly say we don't want the Islamic thing, we don't want the racial thing. They kept saying that, but you kept voting the government that has been in cahoot with Barisan Nasional for so long, which promote race issue and religious issue. So what are you talking about? So I just felt like the voters, and I believe that that GPS is not so secure. They're doing the withdrawing of border, trying to secure it. So why are they doing that? Because they know that they could lose everything. Like we talk about 308 in Semenanjung is unexpected. 4 states fell, and Barisan Nasional could not get Selangor and Penang back ever. And even if Pakatan lose Selangor and Penang, it will not be back to Barisan Nasional. It will be to Pakatan Perikatan Nasional. So I'm hoping for that kind of shift in Sabah and Sarawak.
I hope so too.
Because if that happened, then we have a chance to reset what happens in the early 80s when Mahathir, because of the fear, and I really believe that if not for Iran Revolution, Mahathir wouldn't have pivoted to Islamization.
I think so too.
So that's the unfortunate part, because that's actually, you think about it, it's a kind of political spirit rather than a religion kind of thing. It's all about control. I use religion as a tool. And of course, Mahathir being Mahathir, he's like a pharaoh kind of figure. So, so I guess we have to kind of encourage our Borneo folks. They need to do the right thing, and the opportunity might be sooner than later.
Yeah, who knows?
But anyway, we shall talk about that. We haven't talked about Sabah and Sarawak for a while, but I think as we approach the next Malaysia Day, maybe we should do some focus on that, right?
Sure.
It's still a bit far away. But anyway, I think our time has run out. We kind of go place, but it's kind of interesting discussion today, I felt.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
so maybe we can come back and see how the ceasefire holds. And, maybe the next week, everything will be back to normal and Iran agrees to sign and collect some toll money. That will be interesting.
Interesting indeed.
Okay, so that's all we have for today. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.